General Rax Volt had broken interrogators like others broke promises, casually, efficiently, and without looking back. For 3 standard cycles, the Galactic Council had thrown their best at him. Telepaths emerged from his cell speaking in tongues. Pain matrix specialists requested immediate transfers to agricultural colonies. One mind ripper simply walked into the nearest airlock. The Warlord, who had glassed 7 systems, sat in his containment cell, unbroken, unmoved, and deeply, insufferably smug about it. So they sent a human, not a soldier, not a spy, a quiet man with a chessboard? The legends weren't exaggerated. If anything, they were conservative. General Rax Volt commanded fleets that made stars weep. His tactical genius had carved empires from the void and left civilizations as footnotes in galactic history. When the Council's combined armadas finally cornered him at the Battle of Kepler's Sorrow, it took 17 dreadnoughts and a suicide run by the Titan's Rest Asterisk just to crack his flagship's shields. But capturing him was the easy part. The interrogation wing of Station Omega-7 had seen monsters before. War criminals, genocide architects, planet killers who slept soundly after reducing worlds to ash. None of them had prepared the staff for Rax Volt. He made a mind reader cry blood on day 1. The Zelonite telepaths, beings who could rifle through consciousness like filing cabinets, emerged from his cell speaking in shattered fragments about walls of screaming metal and thoughts that cut. 3 quit their profession. 2 requested immediate memory wipes. Day 12 brought the pain specialists. The Koroth had perfected suffering into an art form. Neural stimulators that could make agony dance through a nervous system like music. Rax endured 6 hours of their finest work, then asked if they had anything stronger. The lead torturer transferred to mushroom farming that afternoon. Psychic flensing came next. Truth serums, reality scramblers that could make a being forget their own name. Rax weathered them all with the patience of stone and the amusement of a cat watching mice exhaust themselves against glass. He's not just resistant, reported Dr. Yelaine, the station's chief psychologist, her 4 eyes dim with exhaustion. He's enjoying this. Every failure makes him stronger. The Council grew desperate. 7 star systems remained under Volt's influence. Their populations held hostage by automated death switches only he could deactivate. Children were dying while their legendary interrogator sat in his cell playing games with torturers. Commander Thex, a Brutarian with scars from the Frontier Wars, slammed his fist against the briefing table. We've tried everything. Neural extraction, memory diving, even that new hive mind interface. Nothing works. Not everything, said a quiet voice from the back of the room. The assembled officers turned. A small, pale figure stood in the doorway. Admiral Chen, Earth's representative to the Council. Her expression carried the particular weariness of someone who'd seen too much death and made too many hard choices. There's one option we haven't tried, she continued, stepping into the light. Something from the old archives. Earth Protocol 7. The room fell silent. Earth Protocol 7 was legend, a theoretical framework developed during humanity's first contact wars, back when they were just another aggressive species, clawing their way up from their gravity well. You want to send a human? Commander Thex's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Your species isn't even telepathic. Admiral Chen smiled, and something in that expression made the veteran soldiers shift uncomfortably. No, we're something else entirely. She activated the holodisplay. A personnel file appeared, unremarkable face, quiet eyes, service record filled with classifications they couldn't access. Bring in Dr. Elian Rook. Dr. Elian Rook arrived on the next transport with 3 pieces of luggage. A small duffel bag, a battered thermos that had seen better decades, and a wooden case that looked entirely too ordinary for a maximum security detention facility. The station's security team had been briefed to expect someone intimidating. Earth's finest interrogator, a mindbreaker to match their most dangerous prisoner. Instead, they got a middle-aged man in a rumpled sweater who thanked the shuttle pilot for the smooth landing and asked if there was anywhere decent to get coffee. His weapons? A paperback novel and reading glasses. This is your specialist? Guard Captain Vex studied the human with all 4 eyes, his carapace gleaming under the corridor lights. He looks like a librarian. Careful, Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the comm. Librarians on Earth are terrifying. Elian smiled at that, adjusting his glasses. Just point me toward the prisoner, and perhaps someone could show me where the kitchen is? I make excellent tea. The walk through Omega-7's maximum security wing should have been intimidating. Blast doors thick enough to stop plasma cannons. Energy fields that could disintegrate matter. Guard stations manned by species that had evolved specifically for violence. Elian noticed the architecture instead. Brutarian design, isn't it? You can tell by the geometric patterns. They believe form follows function, but they can't help making it beautiful. Captain Vex's mandibles twitched. No one had ever called their prison beautiful. The cell block housing General Rax Volt existed in its own pocket of reinforced reality. Null field generators, quantum locks, automated defense systems that would activate if the prisoner so much as sneezed aggressively. Through the observation window they could see him. Rax Volt had been born to intimidate. 8 feet of corded muscle and chitinous armor, with eyes like molten copper and scars that told stories of 1,000 battles. Even seated, he radiated the kind of presence that made smaller creatures check their escape routes. He was currently doing push-ups, his 50,000th of the day, according to the monitoring system. He never stops, Captain Vex muttered. Never sleeps more than 2 hours. Never shows weakness. Elian watched the alien warlord move with mechanical precision, each repetition exactly the same as the last. He's bored, the human said quietly. Desperately, profoundly bored. The guards exchanged glances. Bored? Open the cell, Elian said, hefting his wooden case. Sir, I don't think. It's fine. Elian's voice carried quiet confidence. I'm not here to fight him. The locks disengaged with a series of heavy clicks. The blast door slid open. Beyond it, General Rax Volt rose to his full, terrifying height. Elian stepped inside, opened his case, and took out a chessboard. Black or white? For 17 seconds, the most dangerous prisoner in the galaxy stared at the small human who just asked him to choose a color. You're either very brave, Rax Volt said, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer, or spectacularly stupid. Probably both. Elian set the board on the small table that served as the cell's only furniture. But I'm also patient, and I make decent conversation. So, black or white? The warlord's laugh was a sound like breaking glass. Do you know who I am, little human? General Rax Volt, former Supreme Commander of the Hegemony's Third Fleet, architect of the Keppel Offensive, responsible for approximately 2.3 billion deaths across 7 star systems. Elian arranged the pieces with practiced efficiency. Also, according to your service record, a master strategist who once held the Galactic Council's forces at bay for 3 years using nothing but mining equipment and stolen cargo haulers. The alien's eyes narrowed. You studied me. I study everyone I play chess with. It makes for better games. Elian gestured to the board. White moves first, your choice. Rax remained standing, looming over the human like a mountain of violence and barely contained rage. This is your interrogation technique? A children's game? Chess isn't a children's game, and this isn't an interrogation. Elian poured tea from his thermos into a small cup, the steam rising in the recycled air. It's an invitation. To what? To be interesting. The words hung in the air between them. Rax had been called many things: monster, genius, butcher, legend. No one had ever called him boring. He sat down hard enough to make the table shake. White. Excellent choice. Elian moved his king's pawn forward 2 squares. Classical opening. You prefer direct approaches. Rax mirrored the move. I prefer winning. Of course you do. That's why you're here instead of dead. The council wanted to execute you, you know. After Keppel, after everything you'd done. But dead generals don't give up their secrets. The alien's next move was aggressive. Queen's knight to bishop 3, immediately pressuring Elian's center. And what secrets do they think I'll give you, human? The deactivation codes for the death switches, the locations of your remaining fleet assets, the identities of your operatives still embedded in council space. Elian's response was measured, controlled. Standard intelligence priorities. You're stalling. No. Elian moved his bishop, creating a diagonal threat that would develop into something dangerous in a few moves. I'm starting. Rax studied the board. The human's opening was subtle but aggressive, hiding tactical complexity behind apparent simplicity. Like the man himself. They sent you because I broke their telepaths, Rax said, advancing another pawn. They sent me because I asked to come. Elian castled kingside, tucking his most important piece behind a wall of pawns. I was curious about you. Curious? Someone who can hold out against neural extraction and psychic flensing, who can turn torture into a game of endurance. That's not just resistance. That's artistry. The compliment landed like a physical blow. Rax's hand froze above his next piece. No one had called him an artist in a very long time. Day 7. Rax brought his own chair. It shouldn't have been significant. The guards noted it in their reports as a minor procedural anomaly. Prisoner requisition furniture from Storage Base 7, approved for non-security risk. But Elian saw what it really was. The first crack in a wall built from 3 decades of absolute control. See, the games had developed their own rhythm. Morning tea at 0800, board set by 0815. Elian would arrive with his thermos and yesterday's thoughts. Rax would emerge from whatever passed for meditation among his species, and they would play. The Warlord was good, dangerously good. His tactical mind translated beautifully to the 64 squares, finding combinations that would have impressed grandmasters. But chess wasn't war, and war habits were hard to break. You're thinking too many moves ahead, Elian observed on day 10, capturing a knight that Rax had left hanging. In battle, that's wisdom. In chess, it's tunnel vision. Rax grunted, a sound that might have been acknowledgement or threat. Your species' game is limited. All games are limited. That's what makes them interesting. Elian offered the captured piece to his opponent, a habit that had started on day 3 and somehow persisted. Within constraints, we find creativity. The alien didn't take the piece. He never did. But he stopped pretending it wasn't offered. Day 15 brought an unexpected development. Rax won. It wasn't his first victory. They traded games since the beginning. But this one was different, cleaner. A 14-move combination that sacrificed 2 minor pieces to deliver checkmate with elegant brutality. Beautiful, Elian said, studying the final position. Absolutely beautiful. Rax's mandibles twitched. Among his species, aesthetic appreciation was reserved for art and poetry, never for violence. It was merely efficient. Efficiency can be beautiful. Some of the most elegant solutions are also the most practical. Elian reset the board. Care for another? Why? The question came out sharper than intended. Why do you care if I win or lose? Elian paused in his setup, a white pawn held between thumb and forefinger. Because a game where one player doesn't try to win isn't a game, it's a performance. And you think this isn't performance? This entire... Rax gestured around the cell, taking in the guards beyond the transparent aluminum, the cameras recording every move, the entire apparatus of his captivity. This isn't theater for your council masters? Maybe it started that way. Elian placed the pawn on a 4, but not anymore. The human's honesty was a weapon more dangerous than any the council had employed. It cut through defenses that had withstood torture, slipped past barriers built from years of careful control. Day 18. Rax asked for a rematch after losing in 31 moves. Day 22. He shared his ration pack, claiming humans looked too thin to survive proper combat. Day 27. He asked about Earth. The questions started small. Tactical curiosities about human military doctrine. Academic interest in their faster-than-light technology. But gradually, inevitably, they became personal. Your world, Rax said during their morning game. Was it beautiful? Elian's hand stilled above his bishop. Parts of it. Before the war. You lost it? We all lost something. The board sat forgotten between them, pieces frozen mid-game like a moment preserved in amber. Outside the cell, the station's artificial day cycle was shifting toward evening, but neither player seemed to notice. Tell me about your war, Rax said quietly. Elian's fingers traced the rim of his teacup, steam long since dissipated into the recycled air. For 43 days, they danced around the subject. The human's past was classified, his service record a maze of redactions and euphemisms. But classification couldn't hide the weight in his eyes. And it dawned. The Centauri Rebellion, Elian said finally. Not the official name. History calls it the Colonial Integration Conflict. Makes it sound cleaner. How many died? 40 million. Give or take a few cities. The number fell between them like a physical thing. Rax had killed more. His campaigns had touched dozens of worlds, left entire systems scarred. But there was something in the human's voice that made the number feel different. Personal. You were there. I was there. Elian moved his queen, an absent gesture that left his king exposed. New Geneva, beautiful city, had these spires that caught the light just right at sunset. You could see them from orbit. Rax studied his opponent's face. The human's tactical mind was usually flawless, but grief made people careless. What was your mission? Information extraction. The rebels had developed some kind of new ship-killer weapon. Command needed to know how it worked, where it was manufactured, who was building it. Elian's laugh held no humor. Seemed important at the time. Did you find what you were looking for? Oh yes, found everything. Weapon specifications, manufacturing sites, supply chains, even got the names of their deep cover agents in our fleet. Elian finally looked up from the board. Took me 6 months of careful work. Built relationships, earned trust, made friends. The past tense hung heavy in the air. Then we glassed the cities. Rax's breathing stopped. In all his campaigns, all his calculated brutality, he'd never heard anyone describe planetary bombardment with such quiet devastation. Standard military doctrine, Elian continued, his voice steady as stone. Remove manufacturing capability, eliminate potential resistance nodes, send a message to other colonies considering rebellion. He moved his king, finally recognizing the threat to his position. Very efficient. You gave the order? I gave the intelligence that made the order possible. Same thing in the end. Silence stretched between them. Through the observation window, guards pretended not to listen while recording every word. The children's hospital had these murals, Elian said suddenly, painted by the patients. Dragons and spaceships and stick figure families. Bright colors everywhere. He captured one of Rax's pawns. The click of wood on wood is sharp in the quiet. I wonder if they finished them before we arrived. Rax stared at the human across from him, the quiet man who made tea and played gentle games and spoke of genocide like discussing weather. We lost cities too, Rax said finally. It didn't make us monsters, just angry. Elian met his eyes. You remember the screaming, don't you? Day 56 began like all the others. Tea at 8, board set by 1:15. But something had shifted in the air between them, a subtle change like the pressure drop before a storm. Rax was playing differently today, more aggressively, pushing his pieces forward with calculated precision. His queen swept across the board like a warship cutting through void, supported by bishops that controlled the long diagonals like overlapping fields of fire. Interesting formation, Elian observed, studying the position. You're coordinating your pieces like fleet elements. Each piece has its role. Each role serves the greater strategy. Rax advanced another pawn, opening a lane for his remaining knight. The weak must be protected. The strong must lead from where they can be most effective. Elian nodded, then made a quiet move that seemed almost random. A bishop to an empty square on the king's side, away from the main action. And if the strong fall, they don't. The response was immediate, automatic. A commander's first duty is survival, not for his own sake, but for those who depend on his judgment. Even if survival means retreating? Rax's hand froze above his queen. On the board, his pieces were indeed advanced. Beautiful, powerful, and suddenly vulnerable. Elian's innocent-looking bishop controlled key squares, and that quiet move had opened devastating tactical possibilities. Sometimes, Rax said slowly, retreat is the only way to preserve what matters. He pulled his queen back, consolidating his position. It was the right move tactically, but something in the gesture felt larger than chess. The Keppel offensive, Elian said quietly. You weren't trying to conquer those systems. Conquest was the objective. No. Elian's next move was gentle, almost apologetic. A knight that attacked nothing but controlled everything. You were buying time, creating a buffer zone, all those tactical victories, all that bloodshed. You were trying to keep something safe. The silence stretched. Outside, the station's artificial night cycle began, dimming the lights to approximate natural rhythms. The hegemony worlds were next, Rax admitted finally. The Council's expansion fleet was moving toward the core systems. 60 billion civilians with nowhere to run. He moved a pawn, a defensive gesture that revealed more than attack. My fleets couldn't stop them, but we could slow them down. Long enough for the civilians to evacuate. Long enough for some of them to escape. Elian studied the board, seeing the game within the game. Rax's entire position was a delaying action. Beautiful, desperate, doomed from the start. You were never trying to win. I was trying not to lose everything. Rax's voice carried the weight of worlds. There's a difference. And the death switches, the hostage worlds. Rax's laugh was bitter as burnt coffee. Insurance policies, empty threats backed by empty arsenals. Half those systems evacuated months before your people found them. He looked directly at Elian. But your council doesn't need to know that. You laid your flank open, Elian said softly. Rax met his eyes across the chessboard. So did you. Admiral Chen materialized in the observation deck like an unwelcome verdict, her holographic form crackling with barely contained authority. Behind her, the shadowy figures of the Council's inner circle waited with predatory patience. Dr. Rook, she said, her voice carrying across the decades of shared service and mutual respect. Report. Through the transparent aluminum, Elian and Rax continued their game, oblivious to the gathering storm. 63 days of chess had created something the Council hadn't anticipated, a routine that looked suspiciously like friendship. Progress is being made, Captain Vex reported, his carapace gleaming under the observation deck's harsh lights. The prisoner has revealed strategic information, fleet positions, evacuation protocols, civilian protection measures, none of which helps us locate active military assets, interrupted Counselor Thex, his brutarian bulk casting shadows across the viewing window. We need deactivation codes. We need weapon caches. We need something we can use. The human has gained the prisoner's trust, insisted Dr. Yelaine, her four eyes blinking in rapid sequence, a sign of stress among her species. This is unprecedented. No one has ever what? Made friends with a war criminal? Admiral Chen's hologram flickered with irritation. Dr. Rook was sent to extract intelligence, not to provide therapy. Below them, Rax was laughing at something Elian had said. The sound carried through the cell's audio pickup, genuine amusement, the kind that comes from shared understanding rather than cruel satisfaction. He's getting too close, Chen continued. Look at them. This isn't interrogation anymore. It's, she searched for the word. Conversation, finished Counselor Yex, her serpentine form coiling with disapproval. They're having conversations. The observation deck fell silent. In the cell below, Elian was explaining something about pawn structure while Rax listened with the attention of a student learning from a master. Shut it down, Admiral Chen decided. Extract Dr. Rook. Return the prisoner to standard containment protocols. Ma'am, Captain Vex's mandibles clicked uncertainly. The prisoner has been cooperative. His behavior patterns have shifted significantly. Dr. Rook has been compromised. The hologram's edges sharpened, pixels crystallizing into hard lines. Stockholm Syndrome. It happens to interrogators who spend too much time with their subjects. But the intelligence value? What intelligence? 63 days and we have evacuation routes for empty worlds and tactical assessments of our own fleets. Nothing actionable. Nothing useful. Admiral Chen's form began to fade. End this experiment. Now. In the cell below, Elian was rising from his chair. The day's game was over, pieces already being returned to their starting positions for tomorrow's match. Tomorrow's match that would never come. I enjoyed our games, Elian said softly, his words picked up by the cell's sensitive microphones. Thank you. Rax watched him go, his massive form motionless as stone, but his fists were shaking. We weren't at war, the alien whispered to the empty cell. We were talking. 3 days passed like centuries. Rax sat alone in his cell, staring at the empty table where a chessboard should have been. The guards had removed it along with everything else. The extra chair, the tea set, even the small lamp that had made the space feel less like a tomb. He didn't exercise, didn't pace, didn't perform any of the rituals that had sustained him through months of captivity. He simply sat, as motionless as a monument to patience, and waited. The guards whispered about it in the corridors. The prisoner who had broken interrogators now seemed broken himself. He ate when food was provided, slept when exhaustion demanded it, but the fierce intelligence that had made him legendary appeared to have simply switched off. He's still waiting, Captain Vex reported during the morning briefing. Just sitting there, like he expects something. Expects what? Admiral Chen's hologram flickered with annoyance. His friend isn't coming back. Dr. Rook has been reassigned to classified duties. The prisoner needs to accept reality. But reality, as the guards were beginning to learn, was a flexible concept where humans were involved. The blast doors opened at 0800 ship time, just as they had for 63 days before the interruption. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, measured, familiar, carrying the subtle confidence of someone who belonged exactly where they were. Elian Rook stepped into the cell, carrying a wooden case and wearing a smile that had somehow grown sharper during his 3-day absence. Sorry I'm late, he said, setting the case on the table. Paperwork took longer than expected. Rax's head turned slowly, copper eyes, focusing on the human with laser intensity. They said you weren't coming back. They were misinformed. Elian opened the case, revealing the chessboard in all its simple perfection. I've been promoted, actually. Cultural Rehabilitation Officer. Fascinating new position. Very broad mandate. The pieces found their places with practiced efficiency. White and black squares filled with familiar figures, ready for battle. The council approved this. The council approved results. Elian settled into his chair, thermos already steaming with fresh tea. Turns out 63 days of conversation produced more actionable intelligence than 3 years of conventional interrogation. Who would have thought? Rax's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. And now? Now we continue. Elian gestured to the board, where white pieces waited in their eternal formation. Your move. Rax reached for his king's pawn, then paused. It always was, wasn't it? Elian smiled, and in that expression lay the answer to every question the council had never thought to ask. Welcome to the long game, General.